waiting, baby.
We'll see what he does with it. He look over to that side, strong side, throws this one toward the end zone. That is intercepted in the end zone by Bowie State, and they're going to bring it out of the end zone. They're going to roll down the sideline to the 40. He's still on his feet. He's at the 40 now, at the 30, rolls to the 20. Pick six is going to take this one all the way back to the end zone. Touchdown, Bowie State. A terrible turnover by the mighty Vikings.
We all saw what we saw. The Bulldogs did what they did. They handled business. This is the best they've looked on the road by far this year. Granted, it was Elizabeth City State, but still. That's really the only reason I had some concern about this game, was because it was on the road. And I've seen us on the road not look good. But hey, that wasn't the issue today. Complete and utter domination, 48-6. Micah Robinson had a career day, over 170 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. It was crazy, right? But there was a spell in the second quarter which caused me to post this post and which drove home to me why we aren't fighting for a championship right now. Because, listen, yesterday's game was great. We look good on offense. We look good on defense, on special teams. The running game, we look good. But there was a point in the second quarter that explains why we are fighting to go 4-6 next week to close out the season, as opposed to going 7-3 or 8-2 and trying to go to Salem. And it's really quite simple. There was a stretch in the second quarter, and I tweeted about this. That's the real thing that's holding us back. You've seen us against Livingstone, against Bluefield, Elizabeth City State, and then next week we close out the season at home versus Lincoln. And I'm expecting the guys to handle their business in that game. And so we see what we do to teams at the bottom of the conference. It's very clear we are not at the bottom of the conference. It's also very clear that we're not at the top of the conference. And what we saw yesterday in the second quarter is why we're not at the top of the conference. And what do I mean by that? Well, same thing I said in the tweets. This happens pretty much every game at some point in the game. At some point in the game, for whatever reason, the entire team loses focus. And there's mistake after mistake after mistake for an extended period of time. It's like inexplicable. The whole program forgets how to do their jobs almost all at the same time. So this will happen. And it's at random times of the game. Sometimes it's at home. Sometimes it's on the road. Sometimes it's when the game is going good and we're up big. Sometimes it's when the game is close. Sometimes it's when we're behind. There's no rhyme or reason to when this happens, but it happens every game. And this is what happens. One side of the ball, out of nowhere, makes a terrible mistake. Then a couple plays later, there's another mistake and another mistake. And then we switch sides of the ball, and the other side of the ball make a mistake. Then special teams, they get in it. They start making mistakes. Then the coaching staff, everybody starts making inexplicable mistakes back to back to back. So here's an example. And this is kind of what we saw yesterday in the second quarter. We are destroying Elizabeth City State. We are rolling. And next thing you know, what happens? Oh, holding call brings back a touchdown. Then you get a personal foul over here, or then you get it's just stuff back to back. You get a touchdown called back. Then you get a big play, but then you get a false start. Then after the false start, you get an illegal formation. Then after illegal formation, it'll be offsides by a wide receiver. Stuff like this happens. That's how it goes. Big play called back because of a penalty. Then you get a hold. Then you get a false start. Then you get a delay of game. Then somebody drops a wide open pass. Then you get a receiver, offsides. Then it's time to punt. What happens with the punt? Oh, no. The ball goes over the kicker's head, out the back of the end zone, or the other team recovers it, or the kick is blocked, or the kick is decent, but then the coverage is bad and they get a huge return, or they return it for a touchdown. Or if they manage to not have a disaster on special teams, then defense comes. What do? They get a big old sack on first down. Now it's 2nd and 18. Then they give up a 20-yard pass on second down. But then they stop them on first down. They stop them on second down. It's 3rd and short. They stop them on 3rd and short. But then it's 4th down. It's time for a punt. We get offsides or encroachment for 5 yards on 4th and 3. Give them the first down. Or we get a running into the kicker or a roughing the kicker. Or we get a big return and there's an illegal block in the back. Spotted the foul. Bring it all the way back. I'm talking about mistake after mistake after mistake on both sides of the ball, back to back to back, in the middle of a game. And you can get away with that like we did in the second quarter against Elizabeth City. Or like we did random, because this happened, like I said, this happens almost every game. Randomly, homecoming versus Bluefield. Randomly in the second quarter. Just all of a sudden getting a bunch of penalties. Because I said, hey, we beat them 54-0. It really could have been 70-0. Like you see what Virginia Union did to them, 91-0. Now we weren't going to put up 90, but we could have put up 70. And not by going for 2 and stuff like that like Union did. We could have put up 70 just by not making mistakes. Just going through the flow of the offense, we'd have scored 70 points. That's what happened against Winston-Salem. See, when you play better teams, you can't have these spells or you lose games badly. That's what happened against Winston-Salem State. You jump out 7-0, then all of a sudden, everybody forgets how to play football for a quarter. And next thing you know, it's 21-7 on the road. Because this is a team that's competent, that actually knows how to play football. We saw this against Livingstone. We were up 17-0, spanking Livingstone at home. Next thing you know, you look up, you forget how to play football, come out in the third quarter, and next thing you know, it's 17-17. Luckily, we were able to turn that around and put that away, but they tried to give that one away at home. Same thing happened against Fayetteville State. That game was begging the Bulldogs to get up, to build up a 2-score lead and put the game out of reach. Couldn't do it. Mistake after mistake after mistake. You get the ball on the 30 and end time after time after time. You move backwards, don't get any points time after time after time until eventually you lose the game. That's what has happened this year. Randomly, out of nowhere, at some point in the game, the team decides to just completely self-destruct. But we'll see, when you do that against Union, when you do that against Virginia State, when you do that against Winston-Salem State, when you do that against Fayetteville State, teams that are very good or just decent or just competent, you lose. And now we're going into the last game of the season, hoping to finish 4-6. Because, hey, 4-6 sounds a lot better than 3-7. It does. So this is an important game. You want to finish 4-6. You want to finish above Bluefield, which you will automatically. You want to finish above Bluefield, above Elizabeth City State, above Lincoln. Who else would you be above? With 4 wins, you'll definitely be, so 11, 10, 9. At the lowest, we'd be in 8th. But you want to try to get out of 11 teams, you want to at least try to get to 7th, maybe, 7th. So let's run through this. You win next week, you're going to be, Bluefield is going to be 11 with no conference wins, right? Bluefield, Lincoln, Elizabeth City State. But see, here's the thing. Shaw finished 6-4. So we're going to be under Shaw. We're going to be under Winston-Salem State, under Union, under State, under JCSU. That's 5 right there. Livingstone, I'm not sure what their final record is, but I think they will probably finish with at least 5 wins. So that's 6. So yeah, the highest we can hope to get is 7th, but we'll probably finish 8th. But hey, that's if we win on next week. Trust me. Finish 7th or maybe even 8th. That's a lot better than 9th, 10th, 11th. We want to at least be able to say, hey, we did, even in a very bad year, we still won 4 conference games. We still beat 4 conference opponents, 3 of them, well, all 4 of them convincingly. So this is a big game. What I've seen from these 3 wins, hopefully 4, is that we have the talent, the athletes. We have what is necessary to compete for championships. What we don't have is championship execution and focus. That's what's missing, because there's no reason why there's these huge lapses in games out of nowhere. Like just out of nowhere. That's what happened yesterday. You're rolling 21-0. It should be 28-0, 35-0, at least 31-0 going into halftime, but it's 21-0 going into halftime. And the only reason that's the case is because out of nowhere, just forgot how to play football. People can't line up. People can't get the play off in time. People hold it. People not in position. Just everything falls apart. But once again, you can do that against Lincoln, Elizabeth City State, Bluefield. You can do that against them. But when you do that on the road against Winston-Salem, we got the result we got. When you do that on the road against Fayetteville, we got the result we got. And it's crazy because Fayetteville State is not even that good. We definitely should have beat them convincingly. And then that Fayetteville State team that is not that good turned around and shut out Johnson C. Smith. So that tells you, like, here's what I've realized about the CIAA for the most part. The difference between good teams and bad teams in the CIAA, for the most part, is coaching. Most of the time, the talent is pretty much similar and close, outside of maybe like Bluefield and stuff like that. But overall, the talent level is pretty close to one another. The difference is the coaching, the leadership of the program. Now, don't get me wrong, there's outliers. Like Amir Hall is like an outlier in terms of CIAA quarterbacking. Like, that's an outlier. If a team has an Amir Hall type of quarterback, hey, you just going to chalk it up because they're going to win a whole lot of championships. Because, I mean, that's a different kind of level, right? That does happen. Or like a Jada Byers. The team has a Jada Byers type of running back. They're going to get a whole lot of running yards and score a whole lot of touchdowns and win a whole lot of games because that's upper echelons CIAA production and talent, right? So there are outliers. But overall, for the most part, the talent gap in the CIAA is not that large. The difference usually is the coaching, the leadership, the strength and conditioning. Are guys in shape? Can they handle adversity? Are they disciplined? Do they do their jobs? Is there a good game plan? Is there a good scheme? Is there a good culture? That's the difference. Because if you look at like an Elizabeth, because that's what I've noticed. If you watch like an Elizabeth City and some of those teams, a lot of the times they move the ball. They get into the red zone. They make big plays. But the reason they lose, and they lose in embarrassing fashion, is they just make a whole lot of mistakes. Like teams like Elizabeth City State, they'll get in the red zone 5-6 times. And they'll move themselves out of the red zone 3 of those times. They'll turn it over 2 of those times. Like that's just how they go. They'll get interceptions. They'll get sacks. They're not disciplined. They're not structured. Guys are not being put in the right place. Like that's the only difference. And so That's why we're 4-6 right now. I'm saying we didn't even get there. We're 3-6 right now, hoping to finish 4-6 at home Senior Day versus Lincoln. That's how that goes. But hey, like I said, it was a great win. Hopefully we can finish with a great win and finish off the season winning 3 or 4, and we can go into next season trying to build something. So we shall see.